Thank you, state of Florida. For Lithby today. The new tray is causing issues. Don't know what it is. I might cut that out. Hello my friends, welcome to another video. I'm super excited for this video because Enchanted Skein has turned 1 year old. I'm so excited that I can now say I have officially been in business for 1 year. So I created Enchanted Skein as an LLC on March 3rd of 2025. Now, I did not have intention on doing it that day. This is not my first rodeo when it comes to envisioning myself as a small business owner. I've done it many times. I haven't actually been a small business owner until Enchanted Skein, but I've thought about it. I've dreamed about it. I've wanted to do it off and on. The most recent time was probably a good 10 or 15 years ago, and I was doing a lot of paper crafts and scrapbooking and card making and all of these things. And I thought I really wanted to do this as a small business. I planned everything out. I even kind of drew up a logo. I was going to be called Chris Craft. I had like all the things, but I could just never get myself to take that actual step of doing it. I would always find a reason and talk myself out of it. So this is the first time that I've actually taken that leap of faith in myself, essentially, and done this. So again, I said I wasn't intending to do it on that day, and I wasn't. But I had done all the things. I had already figured out that I wanted the name to be Enchanted Skein, and I already envisioned my YouTube channel, and I already envisioned like my social media and all the things I was going to do with it, and going to markets, and yeah, I had all of the pipe dream full, but I just hadn't taken action. And like all the other times, I started talking myself out of it. Like, what if? Like, what if it fails? What if I don't like doing it after 6 months? What if, all the what ifs? And I try to use logic to get myself out of those situations, but sometimes it doesn't help. Like, what was the financial risk? Not a heck of a lot. I already had the yarn. I was already making the things. I just could not get myself to take that final step to actually solidify. And I knew for me, I needed to do that if I was ever going to make anything of this. That evening, I was sitting on the couch and I was just scrolling, and in my mind, I'm passing all of the thoughts. Should I do this? Maybe I shouldn't, all the things. And I literally just said to myself, like, I wish someone else would just make this decision for me. I wish someone would just tell me what to do. Like, give me a sign, universe, tell me what to do. And when I was scrolling, I saw a post, which I swear it said something like National Yarn Day or Crochet Day or something like that. And I just used that as my excuse. I was like, yes, that's it. That's the sign. I'm doing it. It certainly didn't hurt that the date was 3/3. 3 is mine and Mr. Skein's favorite number, as a matter of fact. So I was kind of like, yeah, let's do it. Do this today. And before I could talk myself out of it, I jumped onto the website, which I already had bookmarked, and filled out the information and clicked go. And Enchanted Skein was born. I looked to see what the national day was last year to try to remind myself what it really was. And I can't find that it was yarn or crochet or anything like that. So the only thing I found was Make Yourself Happy Day or something like that. So that would have applied too, I guess, but that's not what I recall. But anyway, long story short, I went ahead and took the leap and did it. Once I set up the LLC, then it was time to really start figuring out exactly what I was going to do. I knew that I was interested in markets. I knew that I was interested in Etsy. So all of those processes just kind of started to unfold. And I think just taking the step of putting a little bit of faith in myself to actually put the money down and take the risk, so to speak, really gave me a boost of adrenaline and drive to really start getting things moving. All right, let's get into the 5 lessons. Now, a little bit of a disclaimer here. This is just things that I've experienced and I'm sharing with you. It may or may not be applicable to you depending on where you live. I know my friends overseas have a lot more regulations when it comes to what you can sell, how you can sell, and all that good stuff. Most of this is for US based, and then maybe your state has particular regulations that I wouldn't know about. I live in the state of Florida, and also, hey, I may be wrong. I may have read something wrong or did something wrong, and I will learn from that, but these are just more to give you some food for thought if this is something you're considering doing. All right, the first one is you may not have to be a business to do business. This is something that I did not know, and I learned kind of after the fact. I'm still glad I didn't know it because I think actually setting up the LLC, like I said, gave me that drive. But if you are nervous to risk that, but still want to do something like markets or sell on Etsy, you actually don't have to have a registered business entity like an LLC or a corporation. You can actually just put yourself in as a sole proprietor and you can sell and see how you like it. That way your risk is a lot lower. I want to say the corporation fee was like $135, $125, something like that. But if that's even, an amount you don't want to risk, you can give things a try without having to do that. Now, there could be some of the bigger markets that do require that. So those, requirements are going to be based on what market you're going to. But oftentimes what I've researched is that if it's a small local craft show, you don't necessarily have to have any kind of business entity. I had built up in my mind this picture of what it would be like to be at markets and to sell on Etsy and all these things, but I wasn't sure I was going to really like it because, quite frankly, I'm more of an introvert. I was a little scared of how I was going to feel about markets once I had done them. I feel like I have two personalities because there's like work Chris and then there's not work Chris. And work Chris is confident, outgoing. I'm the first one to ask questions in a meeting or speak up if it's quiet. And I bring it because I feel like I need it in that environment. But outside of my work environment, I don't talk to people. I'm not someone who picks up the phone and calls people. I'm not someone who, sparks conversation out in public. I obviously do all of the polite, good mornings and thank yous if I'm at a checkout or something. But otherwise, I'm not an eye contact person. I'm not spotting people out in public half the time because I just don't look over. So I was really nervous about markets, and this could have bombed pretty badly if that was not going to be a good thing for me. But thankfully, I really enjoyed the markets. I loved seeing people's faces when they looked at what I made. And I actually kind of work Chris kicked in, but it was like a bit of a hybrid. It was work Chris in the sense that I was like talking to people, interacting with people, but it was still me in that I wasn't like putting on a front necessarily either. I don't know how to explain it. It's so weird, but I ended up really enjoying it, thankfully. But if not, then maybe I would have had to focus on online sales, and go from there. But all that to say, you don't necessarily have to spend money to create your corporation. If you're like me and you're unsure if you're going to enjoy what you're doing, you don't necessarily have to risk that. The second thing on my list is that if you do have an LLC, you do not necessarily have to have a separate tax filing for your LLC. This is something that was news to me. We actually have a tax guy because Mr. Skane used to have his own carpentry business. He has since become a teacher, but we've just kept the same tax guy for the last 2 years to just kind of do our taxes. And at the end of the year, I just kind of reached out and said, hey, here's what I've been doing. I have a little list of all my expenses and all this kind of stuff. Like, what do I need to do? And his assistant and I have been going back and forth, and she informed me that if it's an LLC and I have not specifically filed for S Corp status of the LLC, don't know what it is, or earned $10,000 in income, I don't have to do a separate filing for the LLC. If it's something where you are earning enough, like $10,000 or more per her email, then you may want to look into doing that S Corp status so that you can file separately. So I don't know what that's going to do to my taxes yet. We haven't gotten that far, but I have learned that I do not have to actually file anything separate for the company. The third thing is that the tax guy does not handle sales tax. This was a lesson learned for me because in that email, I was like, oh, and BT dubs, I sold this much and I owe this much in sales tax. So let me know how I handle that. And the assistant was like, yeah, no, we don't do that. You need to do that yourself. So I was kind of like, oh. So apparently how that works is that in your specific state for your sales tax, you need to file with the state and file your taxes on at least a quarterly basis. I think there's a point where your sales require you to do it more often, monthly. But that is not going to be the case for my small business. I went on the state of Florida and did all of my filings and everything. And then I got a hand slap because I had not done my state sales tax for for the last quarter of 2025. I guess I should have done that at the end of the quarter. I think I paid $1.80 or something like that in interest because they were missing out on my money. So going forward, I will be filing quarterly. I also got a nice letter in the mail that was slapping my hand again saying, you should not have done that. And you're lucky we didn't fine you $50 because we were gonna, but you're so new. We said it was fine. Thank you, state of Florida. Lesson learned there. Every quarter I will file. Even if I do not have any sales tax to report, I'm going to put through my filing of $0. And then hopefully the state of Florida will not be angry with me anymore and will no longer slap my hand. The one really great benefit that came out of that, and I think a lot of us didn't know this, is that you do not have to pay sales tax on your yarn. You actually don't have to pay sales tax on anything that you are purchasing to then resell. So if I'm purchasing yarn to make something out of it and then I'm selling it and collecting sales tax, that would essentially be double dipping for the state. So I don't have to pay sales tax on all of those materials. Now you do have to pay sales tax on all of your things like your crochet hooks and your tools and things like that. But anything that is part of the item that you are reselling, so your stuffing, your yarn, your safety eyes, keychain supplies, even your packaging can be eligible if you've included that in your cost to the customer. So just something to keep in mind. I wasn't sure how this worked. When I did all my filing for the sales tax, the state of Florida sent me a tax exempt form for purchases. So I reached out to the two biggest places where I do the most purchasing. One is Amazon and the second one is Premier. On Amazon, the process was super simple. I already have a business account on Amazon. So I just put my information in, uploaded a copy of that certificate. So now whenever I go to create an order on Amazon, I'm sure to separate out things that are part of things that will be resold and things that are just supplies for everyday, things like tools and stuff like that. And when I do the checkout process, there's like kind of a checkbox where you're saying tax exempt or not. So it was really awesome. I was really shocked that it was as easy as it was. And last few orders that I've bought materials for, I have not paid sales tax. When it came to Premier, I could not find anything on their website that said anything about this. So I emailed their customer service and literally like the next day, the person was like, yep, we'll honor that. Just attach your certificate, send it to me, and I will update your account. So I did that. I have not placed an order on Premier since doing that, but I'll let you guys know how it goes when I do. But from what I understand, it's already set up so that in my Premier account, when I order, I will not be charged sales tax. Those little dollars can really add up. So I was excited to find out that I didn't have to do this. Maybe you all already knew it, but I didn't. All right, number 4 is that you do not need to do all the things to be a real small business. When I started this, I got a little extra excited and I started doing all the things. And some of these I do recommend. So like I went and secured the domain enchantedSkein.com. I do recommend doing something like that. It's like a $40 investment if you do it on Google. What I didn't need to do is buy an actual full-blown website, which I did. I paid Squarespace for a year and I have yet to actually launch my actual website. Right now, my domain, if you did enchantedSkein.com, scoots over to Etsy. So I just have it forwarded to my Etsy store. I set up my Etsy. I created a Ko-Fi. I created an eBay account. I created, TikTok and Instagram and all the things, a Facebook. Do I use them now? No, I don't. I didn't take the time to figure out what I liked doing. Again, that doesn't hurt anything to set up anything that's free, obviously, because at least you've secured it if you do find down the road that you want to use it. But you don't have to actually do all the things, and you don't have to actually do YouTube and all the social medias and, all the things. You can pick a lane if you want to stay in it. If you just want to do your local markets and maybe post that you did a local market, just do that. I kind of overloaded myself and then realized I don't have time to do all of this. And I think a lot of us are in that position where you have a full-time job, you have families, you have other obligations, and you really want to see your small business succeed, but doing all of those things does not necessarily equal success. I think it's important to kind of have a strategy. I did not have a strategy. So if you are someone who loves social media and posting every day and doing all that sort of thing, good on you. You can probably grow your business using that avenue. I knew I was going to enjoy doing YouTube videos, but I wasn't sure about the other stuff. And at first when I started, I did enjoy it, but then I quickly got overwhelmed. So, the lesson learned there is that you just don't have to do all of it. I quickly eliminated TikTok. I kind of do Instagram sometimes, but not a lot. I focused a lot more on my videos and market prepping and getting ready for that. So yeah, all of that to say, you don't have to do all the things to have a real small business. Pick and choose what you think you can do successfully and stick to that until you grow from there. And that kind of leads me into the last but not least, number 5, which is make what you love and your people will find you. This is something that I told myself in the beginning and I felt like I knew it, but there's that little pull inside of you to make the things that everyone is making. You know, as I was growing through this last year, the leggy frogs and the Mabel chickens and all of these things were just like the popular thing to make. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. And if you enjoy making them, that is awesome. And I've noticed that there's differences between how people do this, like anything else, I guess. But like some people, their joy is seeing the sale. Like, it's not, you know, they're okay with making it. It's not like it's not fun, but they enjoy making whatever it is. Like they just enjoy crocheting. So they're going to make the popular things and they're going to sell them and they enjoy the fact that they sold them. And that's awesome. Good on you. I am very particular. I have to really enjoy what I'm making, the final outcome of it. And at first, I was telling myself that I'm enjoying these things. Like, it's crochet. I enjoy it. Why wouldn't I like making a Mabel chicken? You know, and I put them out and they sold. They sell. You know, the stuff sells. Trends are trends. But I have shifted more and more away from making something just because it's popular to making it because I looked at it and went, wow, I think I want to make that, you know? And it is very true that your audience will find you, not only audience here, like YouTube kind of thing, but in a market. Certain people were drawn to my booth. Certain people were turned away from my booth. Like, you don't have that? No, I don't have that. Okay. You know, but at the end of the day, if you don't keep yourself happy and motivated in what you're doing, then what's the point? So those are my 5 things. I hope that some of those help you out. I definitely would say the one that I think would have been most helpful to me if I had heard it in someone else's videos, the whole tax-free thing. So if that is a thing where you live, definitely check that out. It will save you a good bit of money over the year. All right. Let's get into this week's makes. So last week I made that bunny using the Bernat Ethereal Stripes yarn that I got from Target. And I was a little disappointed, as I mentioned. I did not like what came out of the center of that skein. This week I decided that I was going to not force myself, but challenge myself. I was going to challenge myself to not cut it apart and be anal retentive. I was going to pull from the center and crochet a dragon, and I used the No Sew Dragon pattern by Crochet by Jenna. I like it much better than I liked the bunny. However, I do still have some issues. So let me show you what we're working with here. This is my dragon. I did some hand painted eyes, and I want to give you a full 360 here because then I can show you my beef. I love up to a certain point. So in this pattern, you make your you know, arms and legs. I guess they're all legs, but you make these 4, and then you get started and you crochet from head to tail. So for this one, I used the color called Aurora, and I did just that. I started center pull. I did not cut anything off. Proud of me. And I really like how it was going here. We've got the pink, and then it started to kind of change into the purple. And then this is where the purple, you know, blended in with the pink. And I think it was a nice blend. It's not really too harsh of a line. You can see a bit of a line here, but it's not too bad. Now, every so often, and I don't know if the camera will pick it up, you'll see a speckle of pink, but it did pretty good. Where I have issue, oh, and you make the wings first, by the way, too. So the wings were done as well. Where I take issue is here. So you can see it's almost like a waistband. It's like he's wearing some kind of pants, although they don't cover his legs. So it's literally like it went from purple to I'm going to contain some green, some neon green, and it's just from that moment on. And yeah, I don't love it. I made this with a 6.5mm hook. I used Bernat Baby Blanket White for the bumps and the horns. He's cute. I definitely like him better than I liked the bunny. And I think this yarn is more suited to something like a dragon. But again, this harsh like swap of color, I didn't expect it. And I don't love that about it. So yeah. Oh, by the way, in this pattern, the bumps on the back, I want to say stop about here. I just keep adding them down the spine because I feel like it's missing them if they're not there. I think I added the 3 at the end, just in case you're wondering. But yeah, so he's good to go. I think someone will buy him and love him, and I think he looks pretty cool because he is a dragon. But again, he's wearing pants or something, so that's the only part I don't like. Let me show you this skein though. I did want to show you this because you can see here, and I think the camera will pick it up, that it kind of looks dingy where it's transitioning. I just don't love it because now it's going to go into a purple with the neon green and then back from the purple to the pink. So I think it's when it's combating colors, you know, colors that don't necessarily work well when you mix them, not next to each other. They look great next to each other, like purple and a green look great. But when you blend them, you start to get muddy. And that's where I think this yarn struggles. But that was that. I didn't make anything else with that. I was like, we're good. The next thing I made was with Premier Pom Pom. So Premier Parfait Chunky Pom Pom. And I grabbed this skein because I wanted to show you a couple things. I've seen people use this yarn before, but I don't recall anyone ever really explaining how this yarn works. And I wanted to show you that. I was kind of surprised. I didn't pay much attention to it. I bought it forever ago. It is super soft, by the way, but I didn't actually pay attention to how it's constructed. And I want to show that. Basically, it is a chenille yarn, and then wound to it is this thin pom-pom stuff. So this strand can create some challenges. It crocheted better than I expected to once I started going because I've double stranded before, and I don't know if I'm trying to go too fast or it's my tension or what, but I always kind of snag one or the other, which gets frustrating. So that would happen in this case, and I would hook this instead of the whole thing here and there. So, and you can see kind of even just in this piece how tightly wound it is here, but then how very loose it is there, and then tightly wound and then loose. And the more you're pulling through this yarn, the more you start to move it around. So just something to be aware of. Like here you can see how hardly twisted it is, I think, versus, you know, other areas. So it can get a little weird when you're working with it. But when I bought this, I bought 2 coordinating neon colors because I knew I wanted to make some sort of dragon. I ended up using the Stella the Flower Dragon pattern by KP Crochet Creations. And while he turned out way smaller than I expected, I love him. Look, how cool is he? For the fact that I had to really slow down, so this took me way longer than I thought it should, I don't care. He's so cool. I love him. I gave him hand-painted eyes. I wanted to, I don't know if the camera will pick up, these have little stars in them, and I've been dying to use them. They're a little larger than probably would have been called for in the pattern. These are 25 millimeter. These were 18. I always forget, sorry. 25 millimeter eyes here. I think the pattern called for 20, but I wanted to use them and I thought they looked good when I put them in. This has a good bit of sewing. You crochet the arms and the legs in, but you got to sew on the horns, you got to sew on the ears, you got to sew on the wings. But yeah, I made him in the pom-pom, and then I did a neon pink and green. Look at his wings. And look, oh. So I started at the tip of the table. Started at the tip of the tail. I did 3 in green, then pink, then green, then pink, then green, and went all the way up. And then up here, I stopped, put his head on, and then I did these last 3 in green. So I took this as kind of just being the breaking point of the pink so that I didn't have to continue that. But anyway, I love him very, very much. Kind of to the point of where I want to keep him. and I hope he doesn't sell almost. But then I'm like, man, what is wrong with you? Because I started doing this because I didn't want to keep the things I made. And then 2 weeks in a row, I have things I want to keep. I want to keep my black cat from last week, and I really want to keep this guy. What was really cool though, is it only took one skein. I was kind of surprised. I expected it to jump into a second skein, but it did not. So I have enough if I do want to make another one for myself, but he's definitely going to market because I don't have enough stuff to not take him to market. The next thing I made was a pattern that I've had sitting for a while that I haven't had the chance to make yet. And it's by Cable and Canvas, and it is called Fiona the Flower. Now, this is my first Cable and Canvas pattern that wasn't like a popping something. So I wanted to jump in and do this exactly as the pattern said. So this is my Fiona. I think she's super cute. The only thing I didn't do is I didn't do the accent flower. I ended up just putting a little leaf on her head. This is all Parfait Chunky. This is in the color Marshmallow, Pistachio, and Mauve? Question mark? But I can tell you, hold on, let me not be lazy. Dusty Mauve. She is super cute. I love her a lot. I will say I made a mistake. I was just going to town and I didn't pay attention that you were supposed to do back loops on one of the rounds here so that you had a front loop to just surface crochet this on. It is light sewing in the sense that you're crocheting your legs in because that's part of how you're going up. You crochet the arms in, you crochet the head on, you just sew the cap on. So not bad at all, but I missed that loop. And then it was like in the front loops from row whatever, do this. And I was like, there's no front loops. And then I scrolled back and I was like, oh yeah, there were front loops. I just ignored it. So what I ended up doing was just chaining enough to get around her. And then I did exactly what they said to do in the front loops and I sewed it on. So I did have to sew that on just because of my mistake. But yeah, other than that, she came out super, super cute. I decided I wanted to make another one of her because she actually went pretty quickly. I was surprised. The thing that takes the longest, I feel like, is the hat because it's just the most like plain. But I did want to make another one of her. I just made a few changes. So this one, Premier Parfait Chunky again, same hook, 5.5 millimeter. What I decided to do on this one was to do slip stitch rounds before doing the color change so that it gave it that less kind of jagged color change look, which, I mean, you guys know what I mean. But I decided to do that. I did that on her little arms and I did that on her legs. I also did that up here when I was color changing for the little stem on her hat. Again, I didn't make the flower for her dress. I didn't feel like she needed it. This time I paid attention and I did the front loops. And honestly, I think if I was to make this again, I would not do that. I liked this way much better. I felt like it was so much easier and quicker. Trying to hold her and do the thing was really annoying. I kind of enjoyed just doing it on the side and sewing it on real quick. So if you're making this pattern, FYI, doing it on the edge of the hat is easy because it's the edge of the hat. But yeah, so same kind of thing. These are 14 millimeter eyes in both of these ladies, by the way. So yeah, these are super cute. I'm really, really, really happy with these two. And then as always, I jumped to some minis because I knew I needed to get some minis done. And I used the Mochi the Capybara pattern by Sweet Beans Crochet to make 5 little mochis. For these guys, what I did is on the first one, and I don't know if this is the one or not, but on the first one, I followed the pattern because I wanted to remind myself of, you know, where these color changes were for everything, followed the pattern. And then after that, I stopped doing that. I got the hang of it. And what I ended up doing was just doing these as surface crochet as far as the ears go. So I did do the color change in the nose because you start in a chain. I did the color change and then I just carried it to the feet, did the feet, and then left them open and left them sitting. And then when I was done with all of them, came back around, did a surface crochet for the ears, and then just embroidered some little sleepy eyes. So these guys are good. Part of me wanted, again, to make 10, but I know I need to kind of keep myself on track. because I'd rather have, you know, some of every type of mini than 10 of one. I'm a little bit torn. Part of me wants to change up what animals I'm offering in my minis, but I'm gonna, I think, maybe just try to make myself stick to what I had, because at least I know that I'll jump back into the motion of them and get them done versus trying some new patterns. So I might change things up for the fall, but for now, I think for this market, I'm just going to focus with what I already had. By the by, these are made with Bernat velvet and baby velvet, and a 4mm hook. And that is all of my makes for this week. I'm debating whether or not I'm going to try another another skein of this ethereal stripes. I still have like 4 other skeins that I haven't tried yet. But we shall see. I got to look at my list. I think I want to do a few things in the aviary area for next week, maybe. I want to see where my counts are so that I can determine where I'm jumping to next. I hope that some of the lessons that I learned are helpful to you. I think I already mentioned this, but I'm planning to do a 1-year anniversary on YouTube video. And in that, I will go over all of the information as far as, you know, when I started my channel, what it's been like since I finally hit the 1,000 subscriber mark. Thank you. You know, so if you have any questions about that, please do leave them in the comments down below. If you don't want to put them in comments, message me on Instagram. I'm not on there every single day, but when I do go on, I will check it. And that way I can be sure to cover any and all of those things. I also have been conversing with a few viewers in the chat about safety eye painting, and I'm actually going to be doing a follow-up video because I've bought a few things and changed a few things in how I've been doing my safety eyes, kind of leveling up my safety eye game. So I am going to be making a video about that as well coming up soon. So if you have any questions or you want to see anything in those videos, please leave them in the comments down below so I can be sure to kind of cover all of that when I do. If you have not already subscribed, please consider doing so. Give the video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you on the next one. Bye.